This is the dawning of the age of Aquarius. This is the new religion that will seek to subvert Christianity. It is the religion of the water bearer. I remember reading about this and watching documentaries back in the day about how first it was the age of the ram. If you guys have seen Zeitgeist, you'll know what I'm talking about. And that's why the Jews would blow the ram's horn. And then Christianity was the age of Pisces, which is why they use the symbol of the fish. I'm not saying any of that's true, but that's what was said. And then the question was, what would be the new religion to supplant and subvert Christianity? The religion of the age of Aquarius. Well, as we enter the age of Aquarius, we have a new religion. In this tweet, David Rosado explains, the Great Awokening is a global phenomenon. No evidence it started in the U.S. media. Analysis of 98 million news articles across 36 countries quantifies, exception, state-controlled media from China, Russia, Iran using wokeness terminology to criticize and mock the West. And here we see, in this image, you can see the rise of terminologies related to transphobia, homophobia, transphobic, Islamophobia. Every one of these countries, even the Congo, experienced a major spike in social justice rhetoric. The one thing that correlates, social media. Yep. Simply put, when the AI is created and shared, it functions to serve human emotion. And anger gets the most shares. So treating people like victims to get them angry got content to be shared. The human experience, similar. All of these countries started to realize this is what makes us money. The human being who wrote the article about Trump being Hitler did not think they were doing anything wrong. But what happens is 100 writers each write 100 stories, put them on the internet, and then the algorithm says, yeah, the one where Trump is Hitler. That guy gets 1 million hits, makes a bunch of money, and then everyone says, that's what we should write. Here we are. Welcome to the new religion.
And it's true because it gets picked up. It's kind of like there's always a language of power throughout all of time. There's the language that everyone kind of speaks. Back in the day, it was like the lingua franca. The heads of state of England wanting to speak to the heads of state of Spain. If they couldn't speak intellectually between English or Spanish, they would use French as the intermediary. Latin was that at one point. Nowadays, it's speaking the language of power, speaking the however you want to phrase it, wokeism, social justiceism, whatever you want to call it. And that is, for example, what was it, like Guatemala or something, a nation where to get like $20,000 in a state grant from the U.S. State Department, they had to accept, I think some of the money had to be used for like drag queen shows. And in a country that's more conservative like Guatemala, it's like, well, why would they need that? It's because if they can speak the language, then the state is going to, and the state meaning the U.S. in this case, will reward them greatly. In a similar way that there used to be actual fashion crimes. Remember, we kind of joke about that, but that was like a thing. The nouveau riche of the 1800s versus the like the old money families, and how could they tell each other apart? Oh, you don't know how to dress. You didn't wear the new fashion for the spring. It sounds kind of silly, right? But you see that in today, like the Zuckerberg types. They'll kind of dress down. They don't want to be as flashy with their clothes and stuff because again, it's signaling I'm on a different level. I may be rich, you may be rich, but I'm a different level than you. So the money of philanthropy, where you can kind of remake the world in your own image, and you kind of use your charity as like an investment, basically. It's not like they're giving away their money now they're poor. It kind of comes back to help them. But again, it's speaking the language of power. And as you were saying, Tim, earlier, like this is kind of like this has proven to be successful. So this is the language of power. Other countries around the world, if they want that U.S. money, they want that U.S. backing, they don't want a color revolution in their country, they're going to speak that language. Even if their populace is like, we don't want this, but they're going to speak that language, or they're going to push it saying, you better speak it or Uncle Sam's coming.
Such a profound point. And if you have ever watched any of the pressers that come out of the World Economic Forum, and you see all of the richest people on the planet, and they get up there and they talk about how they're all concerned about the poor. And I'm like, you're not, though. You're not. But they use that language. That is such a great analysis. I'd never even considered it. That is really the language mechanism that traverses language barriers now. Because if you're talking about equity and inclusion, well, then you're just one of us.
Other big groups that have a lot of money, a lot of backing will go, oh, that guy need to get in contact with him. He's in the same wavelength.
Yep. And the World Bank and the IMF backs the WEF in this entire, it's insane.
New religion.
Insane. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's the new religion, man.
Yeah. Well, the age of Aquarius, when does it begin?
Well, it depends on who you ask.
I think March 20th, 2021. I thought it was 2250. 2160. Some people say it begins.
But it depends on some people have speculated that it's
2021. That we're in it right now,
or that
It's begun.
we're in the cusp between.
I think
so
you're right.
We're watching the emergence of
as basically the Catholic Church has done a lot of good in history, but it's also done some bad. I think the pedophilia that came out of that in like the 90s and stuff annihilated people's love for Christianity.
there's a new report. I think it was out of Maryland about a scandal going back to the 60s. So all that stuff is bad.
and it crushed
Right.
the old religion. It soured it, and now people do need something to believe in.
But this is not what's causing what we're seeing here.
It's created the void.
Here's
the void
here's
is
the
there.
scary thing. This is, you said the dawn of age, the age of Aquarius is 2160.
This when I pulled it up, it says 2021. So already that we're in it. I had heard in 2012 that it was coming up in like 2150 or something.
It may be. And what is it like? Every 2,500 years is a new age?
it's every 2,160 years on average.
2,160. So think about this. At the beginning of the age, it wouldn't immediately be that everyone is indoctrinated into a new religion. It would be that several hundred years into that era, the new religion dominates. So this could be, as we watch Christianity start to diminish and this new psychotic cult take power,
Wow.
100, 200 years, this could be the dominating.
That is so
religious theory.
dark. That
And I
is so
think-
dark if that's what happens.
And I think perhaps why. So, because I'm a devout Catholic, I'll just have to stand up for my church and say that actually pedophilia, obviously, it happens anywhere and everywhere, unfortunately. And so, actually, it was a lot less that happened in the church than happens in, say, the teaching profession or others. The church is actually has, again, so it happened on a smaller scale than people say. It just,
Well,
The mistake.
pop culturally, people go, "Oh, the church," but on a greater thing. So talking about like the different ages or whatever, I think one thing is what's happened in this nation has happened in a way that has happened in. Okay, maybe let's rephrase this. So what's happening in our nation because of some of the market forces, because of liberalism and other things, have eroded the networks that bind people and make people know who they are. What do you hear today from all the disaffected mobs? The people who will come up and want to, scream and yell and, threaten you and stuff. These are people who don't know who they are. And you hear that a lot, but you go back 200 years, people knew who they were. Who are you? Son of John. I'm a farmer. I'm this, I'm that. They knew exactly who they were. I'm a Catholic. I'm a Presbyterian. I'm a this, or that. Nowadays, people don't know who they are. Because people are atomized, people are lonely. And so liberalism, market forces has snipped family ties, community ties, religious ties, all the ties that bind. And so people are lonely, they're atomized in cities, they're a lot more easily emotional. They're easier to lead to riot, to do other things because they're more emotional. They don't have a family that they need to keep their name good for, reputations for, because everyone's kind of on their own. So if you ruin your own name, well, it doesn't matter for your brother or someone else. You're kind of all your own individuals. That's something the USSR and other nations, totalitarian states, did purposefully. We kind of got here accidentally. That's what I was trying to say earlier when I forgot my words. They did that intentionally where they had the state come in and they snipped those ties. They destroyed ethnic groups that were very strong on religion, very strong on family ties. They would deport them, move them, do whatever. And then again, go after church, make it subservient to the state or just shut it down in general. And then on and on, because they're getting people out of the peasant areas, because that's where tradition usually survives longest. And they were pushing people into the cities. You saw China do this even through like the 80s and 90s when they were on the come up before they pushed Japan out to become the world's second largest economy. Again and again, you saw that. Again, those totalitarian regimes, they were doing that purposefully because they want you listening to the state first and foremost and not to your family, to your pastor, whoever.
Forgive me, but
we got here accidentally. But it's the same result.
I don't agree it was accidental.
Okay. Oh, well, yeah, okay.
Give me your,
I get that.
Give me
I
your
get that.
theory as to how it happened.
Well, I mean, it could be accidental in the sense that there was just a bunch of policies that were completely ill-conceived and moronic, maybe. Or it could be that, you had the war on drugs and you broke the black family and you create all sorts of discord that happens there. Then you have obviously the militarism that has persisted throughout my entire adult life and far longer than that. I think that ultimately those things alone will kind of unmoor a society. It starts to degrade the culture, the underlying culture, the ties that bind. Then you have obviously the not the advent, but the popularity that came in the atheist movement over the past 20 years, I think was really interesting. And keeping in mind, I'm not a religious person, but I think that it's quite evident in hindsight that there is a major price to be paid when you have people that give up on religion and they make the state their god. And that is what I see being very pervasive amongst the young people.
I think bringing up social media and how that's also atomizing things is very true. I got up this morning pretty early and I logged on to Steam to play some video games. And when I did, my dad logged on to play some video games. And I was like, my dad's here. And we didn't talk, didn't message, nothing. I just saw his name and I felt his presence. But it wasn't like I was calling him on the phone. There was no communication.
It's a superficial connection. I think that's one of the strange part of our modern world. Instead of, you're absolutely right, going to church, seeing your family, living near them, being connected in a really authentic way where you can communicate with them, you know intimately kind of how they're living their lives, what they're thinking about, what their concerns are. You get updates on social media. Oh, this person got engaged. Oh, this person's moving houses. And it, again, we're tuned to have this dissatisfaction culture where it's like, why am I not getting those things? Why am I not in those relationships? How can I solve things? Who's at fault for that? Why don't I have what I want in life? I think part of it is that we don't have a unifying national culture, and we struggle as a nation because of the geographic size and the complexity of our makeup to have that. And I think it became easier to pull people apart than to bring them together.
I think that the unifying culture that we once had was one of, bootstrapping it, entrepreneurialism, I will find a way through. And now, unfortunately, because of public education, in my humble opinion, you now have the youngest generation that believes that they are oppressed structurally, not just because of race and sexism and all this other stuff, but also because of capitalism. They all believe that capitalism's evil. Not all, but a huge percentage do. I think that once you have broken that cultural tie, one of, like, I'm going to find a way to make it, that's what the land of the free, the opportunity, all this stuff, that's what we used to migrate here for. That's what my great-grandfather came here for. And now you don't hear that talked about very much from the people that are born here.
This is why I think Elon Musk buying Twitter was so important, because I believe that what we're seeing is just I would say it's probably more accidental. That when Twitter was created, it was the free speech wing of the free speech party. But when they implement these algorithms to maximize profits, they turned a generation of people around the world into psychotic, deranged individuals.
So short-sighted though, because I mean, culturally and not just culturally, but economically, civilizationally, like you're really playing with fire by feeding into these algorithmic.
But no one feels an obligation to that. No one feels like if you're at the tech entrepreneur and you could make $1 billion in a decade, that's what your priority is. That seems like forever. You don't.
And
think
where's
about
Jack
the
Dorsey?
Global, I have no idea.
Always.
Grown his beard.
Yeah. We didn't do it at
And
Mines.
what happened to his friend? See, this is what really bothers me, is that story in SF is sad, because here's a guy who was leaving San Francisco saying the crime is getting out of control. We got to go. It's his buddies that did this. Mm-hmm. It was Jack Dorsey, Mark Zuckerberg, Susan Wojcicki, I haven't pronounced her name. These people were just like, we must maximize profits. So I got to be honest, the criticism of capitalism, I can get to a certain degree. These big corporations were basically saying, create a social media algorithm, write me code, and I wanted to do one thing. I want it to reduce things that cost us money and increase things that make us money. And because big brand advertisers are terrified of leftist activists, you were more likely to see, if Coca-Cola was emailed by the far left, you're offensive, then they'd be like, okay, stop that campaign. YouTube, Twitter, Facebook says, we're losing money. What's going on? Well, the activists are mad, but conservatives wouldn't boycott. Conservatives don't protest. So these companies have nothing to worry about. Even right now with the Anheuser-Busch boycott, you still have a lot of conservatives being like, oh, it's stupid. I don't care. Okay. So Anheuser-Busch is looking at it. What happened? Nike doubled down in defense of Dylan Mulvaney because they do not feel the economic repercussions from conservatives.
I gotta make the defense of capitalism argument as an ANCAP. ESG. I'm wearing the shirt. Environmental social governance. This is exactly how the government is dictating diversity, equity, and inclusion practices in these businesses, in their marketing schemes. Like, this is not an organic thing entirely. Tim is absolutely right. The algorithms, the social media world, the youth movement, all that's true. But it wouldn't be this bad. You wouldn't have so many companies that were insulting their customer base if it wasn't a financial imperative on the back end, because BlackRock, State Street, Vanguard are functioning under ESG protocols, which dictate that they will only invest in these companies. No, that's true.
I know, but you got it backwards. ESG emerged from this, not the other way around. Social media companies, like I said, Jack Dorsey said, we're the free speech wing of the free speech party. So where did ESG come from?
ESG 2005 United Nations, Kofi Annan.
So when these algorithms get implemented, this is the point I made to, I can't remember who we were talking about when it came to academic. I think I was telling Phil Labonte this as well. ESG and other ideologies. How many, let me ask you basically, how many ideologies exist? Right, exactly. It's ridiculous. There's so many. Why is it that only these are prominent today? A vehicle was built by which they could be pushed onto the masses globally. And it just so happened that what fit those holes was the likes of ESG.
Correct.
There's a bunch of other ideologies that could have been, hey, how about white nationalism? Nope. Jack Dorsey banned that stuff in like 2015 and 16. They were like, we're getting a lot of flack from activists. We are getting attacked by the corporate press. Shut this part down.
Yeah.
And then you could not monetize that content. It could not exist and it would not be influential. So nobody went near it. What happens is people like Jack Dorsey at one point says, I'm all about free speech. Then he has a board and investors say, we're not making money here. And he goes, it was not an instant thing. What happened that slowly changed at Twitter was they would get a bunch of far left activists who would attack them. And they would say, hey, look, we're getting attacked a lot for this stuff. People are quitting. The far left is much more likely to boycott, protest, or quit than the right is. So the economic pressure is just right there. There have been a bunch of economic ideologies. Climate change, for instance, has not had as easy of a time as ESG. Right. It's funny, right? Climate change has been around for a long time with Al Gore, and it's struggled to get a foothold. Why? Because social media doesn't care. There's no monetary incentive to ban someone who doesn't care about climate change.
Yeah.
But the ESG stuff overlaps with bigotry, homophobia, etc. So when someone says something naughty or racist, everybody says, okay, whoa, hold on there, guys. Everybody basically agreed we don't want to see that stuff.
Right.
It gets taken to an extreme degree. The far left throws a firebomb and complains, and all the corporations say, I don't want to piss these lunatics off. Please don't associate me with that kind of content. Twitter then says, don't worry, we'll downrank. This is literally what happened. YouTube said, we will downrank all of that content so people don't see it and flag it for demonetization. Please don't leave. There was no inverse pressure from the right to support and push for things they did like and to oppose the far left. So what happens? Man, I remember back when they were doing these weird videos showing kids sex toys. And this is like 2013, 2014. It's like during Gamergate. That stuff was all happening. Conservatives did not have that as a core platform. Conservatives have been behind behind on this the entire time. Simple example: Act Blue and Win Red. The Democrats have had an online digital fundraising platform, Act Blue, and it took the Republicans like 3 or 4 years to figure it out and make their own. That's how far behind they were.
Well, there's two reasons in my estimation. One, the conservatives allow the progressives to raise their children. So how are you going to compete with activism when you don't have kids that actually share your values? I think you're automatically at a dead end.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.